I'm 95 years old. I have lived for nearly a century without ever truly trusting another human being, and in refusing to give trust, I never received it. I sit in this room surrounded by paid caregivers who watch me like I'm a flight risk, family members who visit out of obligation rather than affection, and medical professionals who document my every word because they've learned that I question everyone's motives and suspect everyone of having hidden agendas. My name is George, and I need to tell you something that took me 95 years to understand. Trust is not something you earn from others by being suspicious of them. Trust is something you create by being trustworthy yourself, and you demonstrate trustworthiness by extending trust to others. I spent 9.5 decades protecting myself from betrayal by never allowing anyone close enough to betray me. And in protecting myself from hurt, I protected myself from love. You think suspicion is wisdom. You think questioning people's motives protects you from being used, manipulated, or disappointed. You think that trusting people makes you vulnerable, naive, a potential victim. That's what I thought for 95 years. That's the lie that kept me safe from betrayal and completely isolated from genuine human connection, that protected me from being hurt by ensuring I was never close enough to anyone for their actions to matter. I learned distrust early. When I was 8 years old, my best friend Tommy promised to save me a seat at the school assembly. When I arrived late, the seat was empty, but he said it was saved for someone else, someone more popular than me. It was a small betrayal, the kind children experience and usually forget. But I didn't forget. I decided that people could not be trusted to keep their word, that promises were meaningless, that counting on others led to disappointment. I decided that the only person I could rely on was myself. The first hard truth I learned too late. When you let one small betrayal teach you to distrust everyone, you close yourself off from thousands of opportunities for genuine connection. When you decide that all people are unreliable because one person disappointed you, you create a world where your assumption becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. As I grew older, I became an expert at spotting potential deception, hidden motives, and reasons why people might not be telling me the whole truth. When classmates invited me to parties, I wondered what they really wanted from me. When teachers praised my work, I suspected they were trying to manipulate me into working harder. When girls showed interest in dating me, I questioned whether they genuinely liked me or if they were attracted to something else entirely. My suspicious nature made me successful in business. I was cautious with investments, careful with contracts, skeptical of deals that seemed too good to be true. I double-checked everything, trusted no one's word without documentation. This approach protected me from fraud and scams. It also made me wealthy, careful, and completely alone. I interpreted every success as evidence that my distrust was justified, that people really were trying to take advantage of me, that my suspicious nature was intelligence rather than fear. I couldn't see that my success came at the cost of isolation, that protecting myself from being cheated meant protecting myself from being loved. The second hard truth: success built on distrust is hollow success. When you achieve your goals by assuming everyone around you has selfish motives, you cannot enjoy your achievements because you have no one to share them with who isn't suspected of wanting something from you. I married Helen in 1953. She was patient, loving, understanding, everything I needed but couldn't appreciate because I was too busy questioning why she wanted to be with me. During our engagement, I wondered if she was marrying me for financial security. During our wedding, I watched her face for signs that she was having second thoughts. During our honeymoon, I analyzed her every word for hidden meanings, her every gesture for evidence of deception. Helen tried for 37 years to prove that she loved me for who I was, not for what I could provide. She worked, so I couldn't accuse her of being after my money. She was faithful, so I couldn't accuse her of wanting other men. She was supportive, so I couldn't accuse her of trying to undermine me. But instead of accepting her love as genuine, I kept searching for the real reason she stayed with me, the hidden motive, the secret agenda that would eventually reveal itself. When Helen was late coming home from work, I wondered if she was having an affair. When she was friendly with male neighbors, I questioned whether she was flirting. When she wanted to spend money on things for the house, I suspected she was being wasteful with my earnings. When she suggested social activities, I wondered if she was trying to show me off or if she was embarrassed by our quiet life together. I hired private investigators twice to follow Helen, convinced that she must be deceiving me. Both times they reported that she lived exactly the life she said she was living. Instead of feeling relieved, I convinced myself that she was simply too clever to be caught. The third hard truth: when you cannot trust the people who love you most, you make it impossible for them to love you. When you treat loyalty with suspicion, you teach people that their devotion is worthless. When you question the motives of people who have never given you reason to doubt them, you push them away by making love feel like a crime they have to defend against. We had 3 children. Michael was born in 1955, Patricia in 1957, Robert in 1960. I loved those children desperately, but I could not trust them, even as babies, even as small children who needed me completely. I was suspicious of their tears, wondering if they were manipulating me for attention. I questioned their affection, wondering if they were trying to get something from me. I doubted their love, convinced that children only loved parents who provided for them. As they grew older, my distrust became more elaborate and damaging. When they asked for money for school supplies, I wondered if they were lying about what they needed it for. When they wanted to spend time with friends, I suspected they were planning activities they didn't want me to know about. When they brought home good grades, I questioned whether they had cheated or if their teachers were being too easy on them. I searched their rooms regularly, looking for evidence of deception. I questioned their friends, listened to their phone conversations, and monitored their activities like they were suspects in a criminal investigation rather than children who needed guidance and trust. Michael stopped bringing friends home because he was embarrassed by his father's interrogations. Patricia stopped sharing her thoughts and feelings because she learned that everything she said would be analyzed for hidden meanings. Robert stopped asking for help with problems because he knew his father would assume he was lying about something. The fourth hard truth: children who grow up without their parents' trust learn not to trust their parents. When you treat your children like they are constantly deceiving you, you teach them that deception is normal, that trust is impossible, that love comes with suspicion. You create the very dishonesty you fear by making honesty feel dangerous. My children learned to tell me only what they thought I wanted to hear, not what they really thought or felt. They learned to hide their problems from me because bringing problems to my attention meant being questioned about whether the problems were real, whether they had caused them themselves, whether they were trying to manipulate me into solving them. By the time they were teenagers, my children had learned to live like prisoners in their own home, careful about what they said, cautious about what they asked for, always aware that their father was looking for evidence that they were not who they appeared to be. They stopped trying to earn my trust because they realized it was impossible to earn something their father was incapable of giving. When Michael graduated from high school, I accused him of cheating his way through because his grades were better than I expected. When Patricia got engaged, I hired an investigator to check her fiancé's background because I was convinced he was after her money. When Robert was accepted to college, I questioned whether he had lied on his application because I couldn't believe the achievement was legitimate. My distrust poisoned every milestone, every celebration, every moment when I should have been proud of my children's accomplishments. Instead of feeling joy at their successes, I felt suspicion about how they had achieved them. Instead of celebrating their happiness, I looked for evidence that their happiness was built on deception. The fifth hard truth: when you cannot trust your children's successes, you cannot celebrate their achievements. When you question every good thing that happens to people you love, you make yourself incapable of sharing their joy. Suspicion steals happiness from everyone, including the person who chooses to be suspicious. Helen left me in 1990 after 37 years of marriage. She didn't leave because I was cruel or abusive. She left because she was exhausted from being treated like a suspect in her own marriage, tired of having her love questioned, her motives analyzed, her every action examined for evidence of betrayal. She said she felt like she had been on trial for nearly 4 decades, constantly having to prove her innocence to a judge who had already decided she was guilty. On the day she moved out, Helen told me something that I have never forgotten. She said, "George, I have given you 37 years of faithfulness, and you still don't trust me. I have shown you love in every way I know how, and you still question my motives. I can't live the rest of my life trying to prove I'm trustworthy to someone who is incapable of trust." Helen was right. I had taken the most loyal, loving, honest person I had ever known and treated her like a criminal. I had received decades of genuine affection and responded with suspicion and doubt. I had been given the gift of unconditional love and spent every day looking for conditions, hidden costs, secret motives. After Helen left, I was alone with my suspicions, my doubts, my carefully constructed walls that had protected me from betrayal by ensuring I had no one left to betray me. I realized that my distrust had not made me safer. It had made me isolated. It had not protected me from hurt. It had prevented me from experiencing love. It had not made me wiser. It had made me lonely. The sixth hard truth: protecting yourself from betrayal by trusting no one guarantees that you will end up alone. When you assume everyone has hidden motives, you miss the people who have genuine motives. When you treat everyone like they are trying to deceive you, you push away the people who are trying to love you. My children tried to maintain relationships with both parents after the divorce, but it was difficult and painful. They had spent their entire lives being treated with suspicion by their father, and even as adults, they could not trust that I had changed. They visited me out of duty, called me out of obligation, included me in family events because they felt they should, not because they wanted to. Michael became successful in business, but never shared his achievements with me because he knew I would question how he had accomplished them. Patricia married and had children, but rarely brought them to visit. Robert moved across the country and maintained minimal contact because distance was easier than trying to have a relationship with someone who couldn't trust him. I wanted to be close to my children, but I had trained them for decades not to trust me with their real thoughts, their genuine feelings, their honest struggles. They had learned to give me surface-level updates, polite conversation, careful responses that wouldn't trigger my suspicious analysis. They had learned to love me from a distance, because close relationships with me required constant self-defense. The seventh hard truth: you cannot build close relationships with people you have taught to protect themselves from you. When you spend decades treating people with suspicion, they learn to hide their real selves from you. When you make trust dangerous, people choose safety over intimacy. At 87 years old, I finally started to understand what my distrust had cost me. I was wealthy, successful, and completely isolated from genuine human connection. I had spent nearly 9 decades protecting myself from people who might hurt me, and had succeeded in ensuring that no one was close enough to hurt me, because no one was close enough to love me. I tried to change. I tried to trust people, to give them the benefit of the doubt, to assume positive intentions until proven otherwise. But after 8.5 decades of suspicion, trust felt foreign and dangerous. My brain had been trained to look for deception, to question motives, to assume that people were not what they appeared to be. When caregivers came to help me with daily tasks, I questioned whether they were stealing from me. When neighbors offered assistance, I wondered what they wanted in return. When family members visited, I analyzed their words for hidden meanings. I couldn't turn off the suspicious thinking that had defined my entire life. The eighth hard truth. Learning to trust late in life is possible but difficult. When you have spent decades assuming people are deceptive, changing that assumption requires constant effort. Trust is a skill that atrophies when unused and must be rebuilt deliberately and with patience. I see other elderly people who are surrounded by loving families, who have friends who visit regularly, who seem at peace with their relationships. These people are not more fortunate than me. They do not have better families than I had. They have something I never learned, the ability to trust, to assume good intentions, to believe that people can love them without hidden agendas. My neighbor Frank is 92 years old and has family and friends around him constantly. When his grandson asks for money, Frank assumes he needs it for the reason he states. When friends invite him to activities, Frank assumes they enjoy his company rather than questioning what they want from him. Frank has been disappointed by people, betrayed by some, hurt by others, but he has not let those experiences convince him that all people are untrustworthy. He has maintained his ability to extend trust, to give people the benefit of the doubt, and because he trusts people, people trust him back. I realize that the difference between Frank and me is not that he has been treated better by life, but that he chose to remain open to connection despite being hurt sometimes. He chose vulnerability over safety, trust over suspicion, love over isolation. The ninth hard truth. People who trust others despite being hurt sometimes are not naive, they are brave. People who choose vulnerability despite the risk of betrayal are not weak, they are strong. People who give others the benefit of the doubt despite being disappointed sometimes are not foolish, they are wise. I'm 95 years old now. I have maybe 2 years left, maybe less. And I am spending these final years surrounded by people who cannot trust me because I never trusted them, who treat me with careful professionalism rather than genuine warmth, who maintain distance from me because I taught them that closeness was dangerous. My children love me but do not trust me. My caregivers care for me but do not confide in me. I am surrounded by people and completely alone because I spent 95 years building walls that kept everyone at a safe distance. I think about Tommy, my childhood friend who broke his promise about saving me a seat. I think about how that small disappointment shaped my entire approach to human relationships. How one child's thoughtless action convinced me that people could not be trusted. I wonder what my life would have been like if I had chosen to trust Helen when she showed me love, if I had believed my children when they needed my faith, if I had given people the benefit of the doubt. I wonder how much joy I missed, how much love I rejected, how much connection I sacrificed to protect myself from betrayal that rarely came. Trust is not about being naive or setting yourself up to be hurt. Trust is about believing that most people are doing their best. Trust is about giving people the opportunity to prove they are worthy of your faith, rather than requiring them to earn it first. Trust is about choosing connection over protection, love over fear. Don't make my mistake. Don't let one betrayal teach you to distrust everyone. Don't protect yourself from hurt by ensuring you never get close enough to anyone for their actions to matter. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Assume positive intentions until proven otherwise. Extend trust as a gift, not as something that must be earned through perfect behavior. Yes, some people will disappoint you, some people will betray your trust. But the alternative is spending your life surrounded by people who can never get close enough to love you because you never let them close enough to prove they deserve your trust. I'm tired now. Tired of remembering 95 years of suspicion that protected me from nothing. Trust people. Let them prove they are worthy by giving them the opportunity to do so.